Wow, that was a giant picture of me on a screen. That's not very... No one wants that. If you find my trousers offensive, I can guarantee you they're really fashionable in the future. So, my name's Rohan. I've spent 10 years as a meditator, 20 years engaging in a world of technology, and 33 years as a human being. And I'm wondering what to talk about. There's so much, so much to say in this area. And because we're here in Futurefest, I thought I'd better talk about the future, so I'll do that. There seems to be a lot of conversation around technology, so let's talk about that. And design is pretty cool too, so we're going to talk about that as well. But the thing I actually want to talk about mainly is training. So this probably sounds a bit boring, but for me, training is, of course, the most important thing, because whatever we're doing, wherever we're doing it, we're constantly training ourselves. And you can call it your brain, you can call it your mind, you can call it your neural pathways, you can call it your personality, you can call it yourself. I don't really care how your personal language for it. Every action that we engage in, all the stimulation and information we receive is training us. And to sort of help understand that a bit more, I thought we'd do a little experiment. So for those of you not so familiar with it, that's called silence. Well, a particular form of silence, but it's the conventional form of silence. And what's interesting about this form of silence is that it really helps provide us a mirror to our minds. And it really helps us understand this idea of training. So think back to that 60 seconds not long ago. If your mind was jumping all over the place from this thought to that thought, then you're training yourself really well in restlessness and distraction. If your mind was thinking, oh my God, I hate this guy, what is he doing? He's totally ruining my afternoon, you're training quite well in aversion. If you spent that 60 seconds thinking, did I miss an instruction? Did he mean to say, am I supposed to be doing something right now? What am I doing? You're really well trained in doubt. And if you spent that 60 seconds with a great deal of calm and mindfulness and focus, then you're really well trained in those things. And so this idea of sort of, we need to understand, because the future's all very well, but right now, how our minds are right now are a result of how we've trained ourselves and how we've been trained in all our lives up till this moment. And this is sort of where technology comes into play, because there are, of course, so many factors that result in how we train ourselves and are trained. But over the last 10 years, one of the absolutely most significant ones is how we use technologies. And in particular, I mean a bit of a technical thing, attentional technologies. So technologies which require our attention quite straightforwardly. They ask us to look at them. They move our attention from place to place. A good shorthand for this is anything with a screen. is attentional technology. And the popular narrative around the technologies like that, social media, the main how we use the web, is that this whole story we're told that, and is actually true, that our attention is fragmented. It's really hard for people to concentrate. We get distracted very easily, and so on. And a lot of people just blame the technology. And I think it's more nuanced than that, because I think technology is essentially ethically neutral, or mentally neutral. Because I think I'm interested in what do we place at the center of our technologies. So let's do an experiment of how we generally experience stuff like this. So we're at an event like this, Futurefest, and you're looking through the Twitter hashtag, Futurefest. And right there on that screen, there's so many things clamoring for attention. Look at me, here's a link, click at me, a picture, an Instagram, whatever. And so our mind is like, whoa, that's like so much. So we're already started to be in this slightly uncomfortable, anxious state. And then you finally find something that you want to look more attention to. Someone's maybe shared an article, a news article about how something like mindfulness or meditation can help your brain, or stuff like that happens all the time. So there's a link, and you click on the link, and the link takes you to a news website. And the story itself is about concentration and attention and well-being. But what's the experience of reading that story? Everything else on that screen is telling you to look at that instead. So an advert is telling you to look at this. Look at this other story. Justin Bieber's done this thing. Look at this. So most of our technologies are fragmenting our attention. But the reason for that is not because technology fragments attention, it's because at the center of those technologies is advertising revenue. And because the thing that's making the web work, the thing at the center of a lot of web experience is advertising revenue. And as a result, it requires us to move away from the thing we actually want to see and look at the periphery. And so the question I'm interested in, and a lot of people, thankfully, and an emerging number of people around the world are interested in, is what if we put something different in the center of our technologies? What if we put mental well-being, happiness, positive emotion, positive affect? What would it be like to design technologies that put our minds in the center of that? And so this is I think this is the big hub of this talk, and my work at the moment is around putting well-being as a design condition. And so what does that look like? Like everything in the future, it exists right now. At least the seeds and the saplings of that experience exist right now. And I think there's an important distinction to make between what I call explicit technologies for well-being and indirect, and I'll just explain what that means. So explicit technologies for well-being. This means deliberately using a technology in a certain way to improve yourself, improve your inner life, to improve your well-being. So this can be something like a headset which you put on. It measures and reads your brain activity, and as such, you get enough visual feedback, so it trains you in exercises to develop concentration and so on. And this technology exists. It looks really lame at the moment. You've got to put on a really crappy headset and clip a thing to your ear, but it'll only get better and it'll only get more. So we're going to see a lot more technologies which explicitly will allow you to understand your neural activity and optimize it thereof. And you can optimize it positively. That's what those technologies are intended to do. You can have technologies like mobile phone apps which teach you how to practice mindfulness and concentration. You can get wristbands or rings which measure your stress responses, called galvanic skin response. And so all these things I call explicit technologies because you decided that you want to do them. You want to develop concentration, focus, well-being, compassion. So you choose an increasing number of technologies that exist on the market and will exist on the market to do that. The bigger question, there's always going to be a certain number of people who want to do that. The bigger question is indirect well-being through technology. So how do we change all of our technologies, not just the ones designed specifically about well-being, but all of our technologies that, how do we design social networks that actually develop compassion? How do we design news websites that support concentration and presence? When sometimes technology companies have a little bit too much time on their hands, and they'll give me a call and say, how do we do it? We've got this new product and we want to retrofit some kind of mindfulness, is typically because of my specialism, into it. And it's really hard to retrofit stuff. It's really important to keep it. If you want to do it really well, you need to put it in as a central design condition. But just to sort of summarize the three sort of things you can do is understanding how we relate to time. So this means, it sounds a bit technical, but interface design that rewards patience. So how do we design our screens and our information systems in such that they reward staying where you are? How do you, in our communication systems, how do we make the information, the emails, email is a terrible example because how do you make our communication systems represent people, not information? Email it's just information. It doesn't actually help you connect to the human being behind it. And so we need to design our communication systems to be much more obviously around people. And finally, how do we, there's a lot of narrative in this future thing about embodied sort of invisible technology and how technology being everywhere. And there's a really important point around, we're lucky because we're in a point in time when technology actually still exists on devices, physical devices like this and like this. And they give us the chance to remember that we're not just brains in vats. We're human beings with bodies, and we can use that. You can design hardware. I had a very interesting conversation with a phone set company around how do you design hardware to make people remember that they're here physically. And so if we don't do that, then if we don't do any of that design stuff, then the alternative future will be one where our minds are all fragmented and our attention is shot to pieces, and it will have happened on our watch. And everything which is happening in the external world, planetary degradation, is terrifying and terrible, but there's also degradation happening inside in our inner worlds. And if we don't, as consumers, recognize that and make it important, then there's going to be a problem. But I'm actually really positive about this because I'm a techno-optimist, and also I look at it like this. The web is 22, 23 years old. When you were 22 or 23, or maybe you are now, you're mainly, certainly me, I was mainly interested in sex, money, and status. And that's what the web is like now. Look at it, pornography, social networking, commercial drivers, sex, money, and status as a 23-year-old. As a meditator and all the meditation communities I've been part of, most of the people I know in that are sort of 35 to 45 years old. And that's because people only start to care about their inner lives after they've had a crisis, after the death of a parent, after a divorce, after a breakdown, after depression. And so the web is going to go through that. It might feel like a stretch to anthropomorphize the web, but I'm confident that the web is going to go through a crisis, and it will recognize that it needs to look inside rather than outside. And that's what makes me really positive about the future of technology and well-being. And again, like I said, we need to really accelerate that as consumers and proactively decide, actually, my well-being is important, and I will buy the products that support that. So that's the future. I've spoken about that in the last couple of seconds. I want to just give you a little gift, which is we're here now. How do we, as a conference participant, delegate, whatever, actually use technology for well-being? And the simple way to do that is take out your phones or your iPad. Do it right now if you like, and just hold it. and know what it's like to feel something, to feel the physicality of the metal knob of my iPhone, the smoothness of the screen, to be here right now. Thanks.